Today is November 26th, and I am here with the artist Andrew Valko. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Before we have a conversation about your specific work, Niagara by Night, I wonder if you could give us a sketch about how you got interested in art, a bit about your background and education.
Okay. I was born in Europe, in Prague, which was Czechoslovakia at the time. Now it's Czech Republic. And my interest in art started really early. I can think back to maybe age 4 or 5 I actually at that time decided I was going to be an artist, and that was my decision all through my life. In other words, it never changed in any way. I went to regular school in Europe under the communist system, and when they recognized you had a talent, they also put me in a special school, and so I took art, music, and I also was a ballet dancer for a number of years early on. And so then we immigrated to Canada in 1968 after the Russian invasion. And then when I came to Canada, I went through different art classes that my parents stuck me into, the Winnipeg Art Gallery, different things. And then I ended up in this a place which I think still exists today, which was called Forum Art Institute. And it was run by Nick Belias, who was I think at one time he was a university professor, and he was a fairly volatile guy, so I think he had some issues with him, so he started this art school, and it used to be in the School of the Deaf in Tuxedo. And when I came there as a young kid on Saturdays with the children, he said to my parents, you can come at night and paint with the adults. So I used to go on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and there was, fair amount sort of semi-professional people at the time. It was a fairly sort of serious school outside of, like the art school, of course, at the university. So I go there with the adults, and for years I sat in a corner, and I had the easel in front of me. I didn't talk to anybody, and everybody smoked. The room was totally filled with smoke, and of course I started smoking too. And then I went there for years, and I actually learned quite a bit from him. And then I did a lot of art for my high school and for all the musicals and yearbooks and all those kind of things. And then after school I went into advertising at Red River. I was going to go into fine arts, but because of a lot of different issues, and because I also sort of thought I should have something to fall back on, I went into advertising at Red River, and I graduated out of that, and got a job for a while, then eventually went back to what I really wanted to do, was painting.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's sort of my art background.
Yeah. So Niagara by Night foreshadows some of your drive-in paintings I've seen on your website. Can you talk a bit about how it fits into that
genre?
Yeah.
I was all through the 80s. I sort of had my first show in 1979, which was sort of a landscape, colored pencil drawings. And then all through the 80s, I sort of was finding out different things. I did a lot of different things. I did printmaking. I did some sort of figurative work. And so I was sort of searching through different things, what I wanted to do, and exhibited that type of work. And then in the late 80s I did this series of paintings on canvas. There was like a beach series of people on beaches. And then I thought, I also at the time went, because I did a lot of printmaking, and which involved woodcuts and things like that, I ended up in Asia, and I ended up in Japan 3 times for quite a long period of time, working with Japanese woodblock printers. And I thought, this would be kind of interesting, and I brought it back to Canada. But when I came to the Japanese woodblock print is different from the Western woodblock print, and the conditions, especially here in Manitoba, are not really favorable to do that kind of printmaking. It's got to do with the wetness of the paper. The atmosphere is really dry here.
Yeah, not
So,
humid enough.
Yeah, it's not humid enough, so it's very difficult to do that process here. It's much easier to do woodblock printing, which is oil-based, which you just roll out the ink onto the board and print from that. The Japanese is all water-based pigments, and it's complicated. But what I did learn from it is one day we're printing this woodblock with this printer I hired, and he rolled it out, and it hit the surface, that obviously is not carved away. And I sort of looked at it and I thought, that's kind of interesting. And that led me into doing a series of paintings that had actually relief carving in them. And then the paintings got more and more sculptural, and they became cutouts and different things like that. And then one day I had to make a choice. Do I want to, what kind of artist are you? Are you going to go into the sculptural thing? Because, the paintings, it started, the concern became the structural concern of the painting and the shapes. And so am I going to move into sculpture, or do I still want to say things through my paintings? Mm-hmm. So what is the choice here? And so I thought I always wanted to say things. I wanted to have the painting say something. I wanted to have a dialogue there. So I started moving back towards just a painting, but the Niagara by Night is a sort of transitional painting because it has some relief carving in it, and some sculptural aspects to it, but it's sort of contained into a sort of a traditional rectangle or traditional space like a canvas. So that was the paintings from that sort of era. It's sort of in between painting.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the relief carving because it almost looks like a collage to me. And
Yes.
also what I find interesting is the text at the top, Niagara by Night, and from certain angles you can barely see it because you've used the same color as the
Right.
background.
Right.
But when the light hits it, then it really pops.
Right.
But it's interesting because it could be quite ambiguous as well.
Right, and that was actually the idea.
Yeah.
Just like the people in that sky, they're sort of like a mirage or what you're actually thinking about. So the title Niagara by Night was supposed to act the same way, and
you said it's Demi Moore and Rob Lowe.
it's Debbie Moore and Rob Lowe. I was looking for an image of, and I've been doing that a lot since then because I've been putting the movie. It's very difficult to find an image where people are just about to kiss, and that it's really. It's one thing to look at an image and just say, oh, that's what's happening, but to have the right image that will work properly, where you can see the faces and stuff. So yeah, it was from an early movie that they did together, and I found it in a magazine and I ripped it out and I thought this is perfect, and so I put them up there. And I actually the painting came from I was at the Niagara, at the Niagara Falls, and. At that time, and I was always fascinated by these sort of kitschy places, because on one hand it's incredibly beautiful. You're looking at one of the world's most beautiful images, wonders, and then there's all this wax museums and honeymoon hotels and stuff around it, and so that sort of was the idea behind the painting. That it was this romantic place, and so I sort of made it kitschy, and I was also interested in these symbols of American symbols of unattainable things, unattainable heroes, unattainable romance, sort of this fantasy thing, and that's what sort of led me to do the painting, those kind of ideas.
And the color too, I think, is important. That kind of ripe red color.
Yeah, it was bizarre because you're looking at this incredible waterfall, which is, like I said, this world's wonder. And then at night they light it with these colors, which on one hand is beautiful, but on one hand is sort of kitschy. It's sort of the opposite of the natural beauty because you're enhancing. It's sort of like a ice cone, when you pour the syrup on it. It's sort of it's overdone. But at the same time, it was beautiful. And so, you know, I was debating what to think about it, you know. It was sort of, so that was sort of part of the painting.
I'm also interested a bit more in the process itself. I mean, you obviously, when you built it in sections, would you carve away some of the paint? Like, would you finish carving before you applied paint? Would you do both at the same time?
That part is, I basically had a panel.
Yeah.
And then the bottom part, the falls, the rocks, and the steam was another cutout, a three-dimensional cutout from another MDF panel, and I glued it on top of the original panel, and then I sanded off the steam into the support panel, so it sort of joined together. It would fade out, so I sanded it down, and then the water is carved with a chisel to give it the sort of the texture of the waves. And then some of the rocks are carved just for texture, and that's pretty well, that was pretty well it, yeah. And, you know, and also, I mean, there is a sort of romantic or sort of sexual aspect to it, obviously.
Erotic,
also.
yeah. And
You
I
know,
thought the red enhanced it too.
the red
Yeah.
and the couple.
And the scale
this-
of the couple too is important.
And this and the steam and
Yeah.
so the couple's almost like the thought of the person rather than them actually being in the sky, which is a sort of a surrealistic treatment. It's almost more like a cartoon bubble, you know, where you see people and then you see what they're thinking. Well, the couple just represents somebody's thought or somebody's desire or somebody's want or need or, you know, or a fantasy.
So when you go to Niagara Falls, this is what you hope will happen.
Yeah. Well, for some people, obviously. Yeah.
Yes, well, I thank you very much for your
Okay.
time today,
You're very
Andrew.
welcome.